Well, it certainly wasn't pretty, but as they say, especially this time of year in late December, a win is a win. The Buffalo Bills were able to accomplish that feat with a 24-21 victory over the rival New England Patriots. I'm Andy Young. Welcome to another episode of Buffalo End Zone.
Hey, Andy, thank you so much for having me on. I'm Jackson Wang, sports reporter, Sports MMJ for Spectrum News here in upstate New York, and honored to be a part of this podcast for the first time.
Yeah, great job out there today from the studio anchoring our coverage. The K-Man, Kevin Carroll, gets the week off. He's allowed to have some time off once in a while, and we'll let him get away with that. And Jackson did a nice job in his place this week. And we're talking about a Bills win where things were sluggish from the start for this Buffalo Bills team. The New England Patriots get out to a 14-0 lead. Drake May, the rookie quarterback, is carving them up on defense. The 30th ranked offensive attack in the NFL, the Patriots were coming into this game, and didn't look like that in the start because the Bills were allowing Ramondre Stevenson to run down the field. They were allowing plays in the passing game from Drake May, some miscues on special teams and on defense, penalties, that sort of thing, really allowing the Patriots to take command of this game. Now, you were never concerned that it was going to be a loss for the Bills, but you were worried that this was going to be closer than maybe most of us thought, especially since this was a 14.5-point spread coming into this game. Jackson, what did you see from the Bills, especially early on, that was the cause for their slow start?
Well, it was right off the bat, the special teams, right? They had a good return. The Patriots had a good return setting up with really good field position to kick off that first drive. And right off the bat, they were able to have their ways, whether it was running ball or Drake May getting those completions, especially on third down, converting those third down to keep the drive alive, move on the field. Obviously, some penalties went their way. Eventually, he connected with Booty there on the 28-yard touchdown there to kick off their first touchdown. They went 2 for 2 on their first two drives, which was really impressive for a team that came into this game averaging about 17 points a game, which was the second lowest in the league, and they were absolutely having their way with the Bills defense on those first two drives. And the big thing for the Patriots that really kept in the game was, hey, let's get these long drives and keep Josh Allen, the offense, off the field, limit their possession, because absolutely the Patriots dominated possession in the first half. Bills only had one, and they ended up punting it away. And the Patriots had two, one ended a touchdown, and the other one eventually led to a touchdown in the second quarter, early second quarter, by that Ramondre Stevenson rushing touchdown, which just bulldozing the defenders that play. That play looked like maybe the weather had an impact on them because they looked like they didn't want anything to do with them on that play, on a 14-yard touchdown there to make it 14-0 there.
Yeah, the Bills obviously dealing with a host of injuries, especially in the back end of their defense coming into this game. They don't get a pass for that, but it is worth noting that 3 starters in the back end in terms of Rasul Douglas, one of your starting outside corners, and both your starting safeties were out for this game in Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin. That means that you have to have the rookie Cole Bishop in there. You have to have Cam Lewis, who's kind of their backup jack of all trades in terms of nickel, safety, can play outside corner, special teams as well. And then you bring in Kaiir Elam as your other outside cornerback, and so you're down there. Not to mention Matt Milano not in this game either. So a host of characters out for this game, and that certainly seems to have been an issue over the last few weeks. I mean, you saw what a high-powered type of offense can do last week with Detroit and the way they were able to steamroll back into the game. And then you see it again this week against a much lesser opponent, but still, New England was effective early in this game. And Sean McDermott was not happy after this game and said a lot of this boils down to guys just have to do their jobs. And so when the back end of the defense is as beat up and banged up as the Bills are, you got to have more out of your front. And that's whether it's in the run or stopping the run or the passing game and getting after the quarterback and making things difficult on Drake May. You saw that happen in the second half, but in the first half, far too much. Jackson, you brought up the third and long plays. That's been a bugaboo for the Bills all season long. When you get the team into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, that should be an advantage for your defense. Oftentimes, if you're watching a Bills game, it feels like advantage offense because they have such a hard time getting off the field in those situations.
Absolutely, that is the secret to keeping these drives alive. And fortunately for the Patriots, I mean, they were definitely bailed out on a lot of them due to pass interference. I think the Bills end up having 13 penalties on the night for 78 yards. I think the Patriots only have 5. I mean, unfortunately, that's like the kind of what you have to deal with when you have new guys in these roles. When they're like, "Hey, I'd rather just take the penalty, right, than give up a big play," and you kind of have to just make that call on the fly there when you're out of position or get beat. And then honestly, on the first touchdown pass that Drake May had, that was a perfectly thrown ball. I mean, there's not much you can do about it there, but eventually they found their footing, they found their groove, they got into the right alignment, got in the right position, and they're able to execute what they were supposed to do in the second half. I mean, 3 turnover, that's what you were hoping to see right off the bat, but eventually they found their way to causing these turnovers, whether it was the Stevenson fumble there in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter there as well with the fumble recovery by fumble recovery there, thanks to thanks to Greg Russo who knocked it away. Probably should have jumped on it himself to get that touchdown, but it's all
Right.
right. You know, it eventually went the Bills' way. And then Kim Lewis, you mentioned he filled in playing safety today, and he got himself his first interception of the year in that role because he was able to make the right read and put himself in position to succeed and jump the route there and able to beat the receiver there to the pass and pick it off and really killed that momentum for the Patriots because at that point, I believe the Bills had just kicked a field goal to go up 17-14. So the Patriots are back on offense driving, starting to build a momentum, certainly putting together a drive there again, but killed that pretty quickly with that Cam Lewis pick there, which was huge in the third quarter.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here because I go a little more negative. So you're kind of leaning towards finding some positives out of this, and I appreciate that. It's good to have balance in that regard. We're not going to go all doom and gloom in this game. We'll get to some of the positive aspects a little bit more in just a bit. One thing I wanted to touch on as well was the Patriots seem to be targeting Balin Spector, the linebacker who was filling in for Matt Milano, started the game on first and second downs with Dorian Williams coming in after that, and also targeting Kaiir Elam. And good teams will do that. Bad teams will do that. They'll try to take advantage of your weaknesses. But I really thought that Spector had a tough time out there at times, and I think Elam at times had a tough time as well. I know he was there in coverage on that deep pass to Booty. He didn't get his head turned around, but seemed like they were trying to go his way a little bit as well. So that is cause for concern when those guys have to go into the game. But I think when you saw that Dorian Williams was coming in on third downs and he's been dealing with an injury, was questionable all week coming into this one. And then Balin Spector went out with a calf injury and Williams had to stay in the game. He brought some juice to the Bills defense and had done much better. Remember, Dorian Williams had been playing the will linebacker, the weak side linebacker, all season long until Matt Milano came back. The fact that he was banged up maybe keeps him from playing a full role with Balin Spector going in. But Williams has shown to me to be thus far a better option than Balin Spector has been. So moving down the stretch here, we'll see what happens with Milano's injury. But those injuries are cause for concern. We'll see how this all shakes out over the next few weeks with rest versus rust and seeding as this all plays out here down the final bit of the season.
For sure. And speaking of injury, I mean, today we learned from NFL Network that Josh Allen had, the fractured left hand he's been dealing with, and then he looks like he bangs up the right hand in the fourth quarter today. But he was able to try to shake it off, get himself back in. We saw him warming up. Hopefully it's minor, but I mean, at this point, not even defense, but offensively, it seems like to be adding up too with that there. But again, today, luckily, he didn't have to do too much. I mean, that was part of it probably because the way the Patriots defense were able to scheme, but really relying heavily on the run game today. And it's a good thing they had that because passing wise, it was really tough today. He threw the ball, I think, to 9 different receivers. So, and only one of them went to Amari Cooper, and then he didn't have a catch last week. So it's starting to get tough down there. Starting to maybe defense trying to figure that out a little bit. Opposing defenses at least.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The passing game was not on its game in this matchup. And you wonder, Josh Allen after the game said, we're riding a fine line between going for that 1 seed and then probably not getting there because of the way the standings are and not showing too much offensively as you head towards the playoffs. And he kind of alluded to the fact that maybe they weren't showing all they could do to go out there and win this game and still pulled it out. the passing game was not good in this game overall. I mean, Josh had a few nice plays, but it wasn't the typical Josh Allen performance. And then you see him go down with that hand, and he comes up after a scramble, and then the next play, he throws the ball down the field and basically just throws a duck into the middle of nowhere. And the dude couldn't feel his fingers, not because it was cold here, which it very much so was with wind chills below zero here in Orchard Park at Highmark Stadium, but because he had knocked his elbow. He had a right elbow contusion and then lost feeling in his right hand. If you're trying to throw a football, especially in sub-zero wind chills, you probably need to have feeling in your right hand to try to throw the football. So to see him on the sidelines kind of shaking that out was concerning for Bills fans, and rightfully so, because he's dealt with some nicks and bruises. You mentioned it. He's been playing with a beat up, probably broken left hand all season long. He's had some other bumps and bruises along the way, had x-rays last week on his shoulder or his elbow. I mean, it's the way he plays, but those things start to pile up. So you worry about that a little bit. But fortunately for the Bills, in the second half especially, they were able to get the run game going and rely on James Cook. And that's something that in years past, they weren't necessarily always able to do. And this year, end of last year and into this year, when the offense isn't cooking through Josh Allen, they've had answers, and that's James Cook, and that's the other running backs as well. But Cook really, with that explosive play in the second quarter to get the Bills back in the game, nice to have that luxury.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't have Josh Allen putting on the cape every game, every play. You're going to need that run game. They finally got that going this year. And then, I mean, luckily they were able to hit the hole. Patriots, they looked like a little bit, they were out of place too and got lucky and just beat them in a foot race there in the second quarter to really get that offense going. And then in the next possession, next offense possession, I mean, they couldn't really do anything after the defense finally got three. And I mean, they faced the 3rd and 16 there, and that was essentially a punt that Josh Allen, got picked off on in the end zone there, and good tackle by Ty Johnson, pinning him down at the 1. So the Patriots really had a lot of work to do in order to get the offense going, starting the drive from the 1 yard line. That's also the same drive where we saw them. I believe it's where they executed the fake punt there, facing a 4th one 25. That was really, really risky there for a team that was a 14-pointer. You're up by 7, so you're gonna go execute a fake punt on your own 25. What'd you think of that?
Well, it's interesting because I'm one of those guys. I'm an old Madden player, right? So I'm going for it whenever, right? I'm going for it on most 4th downs, and I didn't mind that call, and good for them because they've got nothing to lose at that point. What was bizarre to me was the fact that later in the drive they had a chance with another 4th and short and punted it. So if you were willing to fake punt deeper in your own territory, why are you not going for it again later at that point? But that's a coaching decision for Gerard Mayo to figure out. From the Bills' perspective, Sean McDermott was not at all pleased about what happened on that fake punt, and special teams have been a bugaboo for this team. I mean, you go back to the punt return for a touchdown against the blocked punt rather for a touchdown against the Rams. We've had missed field goals from Tyler Bass. You've had long kickoff returns and punt returns at times at inopportune times for this team. And Sean McDermott said, look, point blank, we should not have been in punt return situation in that point of the game. We should have been in a regular defense, and then you send a safety back deep if they do happen to punt, but you're ready for a fake punt at that point. And basically was asked, was that Matthew Smiley's fault, the special teams coordinator? McDermott said yes. So obviously he is not happy what's gone on with special teams, and you'd hate to see that cost the Bills in the playoffs with some sort of miscue like this and cost them a big game.
And luckily, they have 2 games to kind of sort that out. I'm pretty sure McDermott will probably have a lot of conversations with Smiley about that throughout the week as they get for the Jets later on this game. I mean, divisional games are always close. I think the last 3 games with the Patriots have always been 1 possession. The last time the Patriots won in Orchard Park was in 2021. So it's been a few years, but they've always been close. Just the fact that how often they see each other. That factor, as well as you mentioned, Josh Allen saying, hey, we don't want to show too much of the playbook against these guys. We got to save some of the good stuff for the postseason, whether they're going to see, whether it's going to be the Chargers, the Broncos, or whoever ends up getting the wild card spots. But, I mean, we'll see what happens these next 2 weeks. The Chiefs have a pretty tough schedule, so who knows? I mean, they're at the Steelers on Christmas Day, and then they go to the Broncos. That's not an easy win at all. Bo Nix, he's been doing pretty well under Sean Payton, so they'll definitely have their hands full. The Chiefs will have their hands full with the Broncos, and then ideally, you rather play the Jets and the Patriots right at the end of the year. Those should be easier, but again, the divisional games, you never know. 3 divisional games in a row, so it's going to be really interesting to see these 2 weeks. But I guess it starts on Christmas. See what the Chiefs do, right? If they handle the Steelers, I guess maybe it's time to start closing out the playbook a little bit. These 2 games.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a chance that they know their seeding and they're locked into their seed before they play their game against the Jets. And that would be based on how the Ravens do and how the Chiefs do. And if that turns out that the Bills are locked into the 2 seed going into the final 2 games of the regular season, maybe you start to see a little bit of pulling back by the Bills. I don't think Sean McDermott's the type to say, we're going to sit starters for 2 full weeks. I can't see that happening. In many cases, unless guys are a little banged up or they're super vets or whatever, I don't see him even resting guys for a whole game, even though there is that argument that maybe he should. We saw a couple of years ago that there was a meaningless game at the end of the season and they still played Allen and the other players in the first half and won in a blowout fashion, even though week 18 or week 17 at the time didn't mean anything. So it's important, though, that they get healthy because obviously there's some issues in their defense right now. And the more guys they can get back healthy, that's going to be critical down the stretch here this season. I'm not advocating that they sit players for both games, but it might behoove them if Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, Rasul Douglas, Milano, maybe they need another week. You don't see him next week, and maybe you don't see him for 2 weeks, and they get fully healthy and they're ready to go for the first round of the playoffs where they would be potentially locked into a 2 seed.
Yeah, I mean, rest is absolutely crucial. And luckily, they don't have a quick turnaround like the Chiefs or the Steelers. They have that time to rest, a full week to get ready for the Jets coming up. Uh, Bernard leading the game in tackles there. What'd you think of his performance today? Just the way he was able to kind of fill in some of the step up a little bit with some of the guys that were out today.
Yeah, he's a bell cow of their defense, and it kind of goes as he goes. He is really all over the field for the most part. And when things are going tough and he's not able to get off blocks and he's not able to make a difference in the running game, that you can notice it, you can see it. And he's a captain for a reason. He's a fantastic athletic linebacker. There are occasions where sometimes he gets washed out by bigger linemen if he gets a guard on him or things like that and can't quite shed the tackle. But when he's going and he's hunting the football, I mean, he's one of the better inside athletic small linebackers off the ball in the NFL, and you need that. I want to see more out of the second linebacker there. I want to see more out of Williams, who did come in and do a nice job. Obviously, you need to see more out of Spector. And again, you need to see more of the guys up front. We talked about Ed Oliver last week. We talked about Greg Rousseau. We talked about different guys making a difference up front. Those guys have to be difference makers, especially given what's going on in the back end injury-wise.
I think it's gonna be a crazy battle these upcoming few years with Drake May and Josh Allen. I mean, it was pretty exciting to watch the rookie do what he did. Obviously, not good for the Bills that they were kind of getting torn up there, but he was impressive. I mean, that's going to be interesting. You can make an argument. Maybe he's the second best quarterback in division over Tua, but I'll leave it up to other people to discuss that. But that was quite the performance by him in his first trip there to Orchard Park, starting wise at least.
Yeah, he made some really nice throws in this game, and I was impressed, especially at the start of the game, with what he's able to do. I think the Patriots have found their next quarterback. Now it's whether they have the right pieces and the right coaching staff and the right front office to surround him. I mean, you look at their receiving core and their skill position guys, and I think even their offensive line struggles as well. So they've really got to build more around him. A lot of questions. Listening to some sports talk radio out of Boston this week and hearing sports talk radio guests here in Buffalo from Boston talk about they don't know if Gerard Mayo's the guy to lead this team going forward. He was the coach in waiting. Robert Kraft had kind of picked him as the guy to succeed Bill Belichick. But there's a lot of concerns and wonderings if maybe they should cut bait with him after just one season.
Pretty crazy. I mean, 1 year and he's already on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he did get to choose his quarterback because he drafted Drake May, but I mean, I know it's a lot of pressure, especially filling in for Bill Belichick. And ironically, Bill Belichick taking the UNC job, which was one of the bigger news out of college this past
Yeah.
week, and that's Drake May from the Drake May leaves. He comes in, so I guess the world goes round and round.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Jackson, before we go, typically we give out game balls at the end of this podcast, kind of looking at some of the best players, and then we kind of give an LVP or least valuable player. And I'll start on offense, and I'll let you give your defensive game ball. My offensive game ball goes to James Cook, who now has 14 rushing touchdowns on the season, 16 touchdowns overall. He's closing in on O.J. Simpson's all-time record for the team for a season, which was set in 14 games, 16 rushing touchdowns. But James Cook just too shy. There's some guy named Josh Allen who had 15 in between there. But, man, to have James Cook playing the way he is a wild card. And it's a big difference when you have the explosive plays at running back and something to go to other than Josh Allen doing everything. So my game ball offensively goes to James Cook, who just continues to roll. Jackson, defense, where's your game ball go?
I'm going to go with Terrell Bernard. I mean, the way he's been able to step up, especially with the absence of the 4 stars today, Milano, and filling in the gaps, making sure the defense is lined up correctly as one of the leaders. I think he's been crucial. 12 tackles to lead the team today. So it was crucial for him to get that defense back on track, especially the 14-0 deficit early and then leading a defense that caused 3 turnovers in the second half to get them this crucial 21-24 win over the Patriots. That's where my game ball is going to on the defensive side.
All right. My least valuable player overall, and this is kind of a cop-out, but hey, it's our show. We can do what we want, right? Is the entire Bills team in the early stages of this game. I posted on X that I thought the Bills thought that the game got flexed to 8:20 instead of 4:25 because they were not ready. They were sleepwalking through the beginning of this game. And Sean McDermott has harped and harped and harped on quick starts. And you saw them get off to a great start last week against the Lions, but slow start on both sides of the ball in this one. And you can't have that, especially as you get to the postseason and things really tighten up.
All right. If we're going to go with the unit, I'll give it to the special teams because off the bat, the big return, that's not the way you want to start again to give the Patriots a momentum, a team that's scoring the second least amount of points across the league. You don't want to do that. And then obviously the giving up the fake punt there in the second quarter on a 4th and 1 against a team that really had nothing to lose. So you want to see those areas get cleaned up, make the right calls, convert your field goals. You want Bass to be on his game, especially come the postseason, because you know how valuable points come when it comes to January playoff football, especially if it's cold, if it's snowing, who knows what the temperature or the weather is going to bring in Western New York when they host that playoff game. But that's an area that's going to have a lot of conversations. They're going to have a lot of conversations with this week.
All right, before we wrap this thing up, got a really special announcement that we are incredibly stoked about coming up here. Spectrum News 1, the Buffalo End Zone podcast. We are doing a live on location podcast episode January 8th. That's leading into the first weekend of the playoffs. So whether that's the Bills hosting a game in the wild card round, if they're the 2 or 3 seed, or they're on the bye week, if they somehow manage to get the 1 seed that Wednesday, January 8th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Big Ditch Brewing right in downtown Buffalo. We are going to have a live Buffalo End Zone podcast where fans can come meet and greet Kevin Carroll, myself, and, of course, the man of the hour that night will be, I'm sure, the Bills legend, former great wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, Stevie Johnson. So you can hang out with us for an hour or so. Free food and drinks as well. And then we're going to do from 8 to 9, an hour-long live edition of the Buffalo End Zone podcast. So if you want to get tickets for that, they are limited because I think demand's going to be high for this. So you can head to SpectrumLocalNews.com/Buffalo Endzone and sign up for tickets there. Again, free food and drinks, a chance to meet and greet with Kevin Carroll, myself, and the Bills great Stevie Johnson. So we are really fired up to have that happen.
So you get free food, free
Yep.
drinks, free beers.
Yep.
And
maybe
football.
You should show up too, Jackson. Make the trip in from Albany. Make the trip in
Yeah.
from Albany. We'll be happy to have you. We're going to have some special VIP guests as well, some members of the Buffalo media contingent who follow the Bills on the Bills beat. They'll be there as well. You can meet some of them. They'll chime in on the podcast as well. So again, go to SpectrumLocalNews.com/Buffalo Endzone and get your chance to come hang out with us, talk some football, get ready for the playoffs, and enjoy some free food and drinks. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Buffalo Endzone podcast. Bills come away with a 24-21 win to improve to 12-3 on the season, and getting ready to face the Jets next week here at Highmark Stadium in the regular season home finale. Jackson Wang, you did a fantastic job filling in for the K-Man, Kevin Carroll. We'll be happy to have you back here anytime. Thanks again, man.
Thanks so much for having me. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. Yep, that's going to do it for the Buffalo Endzone podcast. We'll see you after the Jets game.